Washington Gladden was a leading American Congregational pastor and early leader in the social gospel movement. He was a leading member of the Progressive Movement, serving for 2 years as a member of the Columbus, Ohio City Council and campaigning against Boss Tweed as religious editor of the New York Independent. Gladden was probably the first leading U.S. religious figure to support unionization of the workforce. He also opposed racial segregation. He was a prolific writer who wrote hundreds of poems, hymns, articles, editorials, and books. Early years: Gladden was born February 11, 1836, in Pottsgrove, Pennsylvania, the son of Solomon and Amanda Gladden. He was given the name Solomon Washington Gladden. When Gladden was 6, his father died. After that, he lived with his uncle on a farm near Owego, NY. There, he learned and practiced a farmer unregistered trademark oe manual arts and used any free time for serious reading that included the Bible. During Gladden unregistered trademark formative years, Western New York State was known as the burned-over district because it had been the center of a number of religious revivals. Gladden heard many preachers in a fruitless search for assurance of divine favor until in his 18th year a clear-headed minister helped him trust the heavenly for their unregistered trademark love for him. From then on Gladden believed that religion is summed up in the word friendship friendship with the Father above and the brother by our side at age 16. Gladden left his unclear unregistered trademark farm to become an apprentice at the Owego Gazette 2 years later at age 18. He became part of the temperance movement by joining the Order of the Good Templars. During his newspaper apprenticeship, Gladden made his choice of a calling, namely, to become an ordained minister in the Congregational Church. This calling required further study, so he enrolled in the Owego Free Academy and from there he enrolled in and graduated from Williams College in the class of 1859. While at Williams, Gladden wrote its alma mater song, The Mountains. Early career 1860 to 1882. During his early career, Gladden held 5 positions in pastorates and journalism. 1860 was a pivotal year for Gladden. He received his first call to a pastorate followed by ordination, marriage, Southern states seceding, and an impending civil war. Gladden unregistered trademark's first call was to State Street Congregational Church in Brooklyn, NY. He began his pastorate in June 1860 and was ordained in November. On December 5, 1860 Gladden and Jenny O'Coon, a schoolmate at the Oswego Free Academy, were married. The couple had 2 daughters, 2 sons, and 1 granddaughter. These personal events in Gladden unregistered trademark's life came during what Gladden recalled as a ominous and exciting events in the national unregistered trademark's life. South Carolina seceded from the Union, followed within 2 months by 6 other states. In June 1861, Gladden resigned and accepted a call to the Congregational Church at Morrisania, NY where he served until 1866. In 1863, Gladden took leave to serve in the Christian Chaplaincy Corps. However, he contracted malaria. This forced him to return home for recovery and resumption of his pastoral duties. Gladden unregistered trademark's third pastorate was in North Adams, Massachusetts where he served from 1866 to 1871. Gladden unregistered trademark's next position was the religious editor of the New York Independent between 1871 and 1875. This weekly newspaper had a nationwide circulation of 1 million. Gladden's role was to write news articles and editorials on practical theology and social issues of the day. From this position, Gladden gained national fame. His role in exposing the corrupt organization of Boss Tweed contributed to his fame. In 1875, Gladden became pastor of the North Congregational Church in Springfield, Massachusetts for 7 years. During this pastorate, Gladden also worked as editor of Sunday Afternoon. Sunday Afternoon described itself as a OEA monthly magazine for the household. Besides editing, Gladden contributed articles. Gladden a unregistered trademark active support for workers and their right to organize began during his years in North Adams and Springfield. His position aroused the opposition of mill and factory owners, but he was not deterred and continued his work for justice the rest of his life. He published Working People and Their Employers in 1876, which advocated the unionization of employees. Gladden was the first notable U.S. clergyman to approve of unions. Gladden did not support socialism or laissez-faire economics, advocating instead the application of Christian law to issues. Gladden a unregistered trademark 1877 book The Christian Way, Whither It Leads and How to Go On was his first national call for a extension of Christian values into everyday life. The book began his leadership in the social gospel movement. Columbus years 1882 to 1918. Gladden became the pastor of the First Congregational Church in Columbus, Ohio in 1882, and served in that position for 36 years. During that time, he furthered his national reputation as a religious leader and as a community leader by his preaching, lecturing, writing, and active involvement. The First Congregational Church stood opposite the Ohio State Capitol. Its congregation included legislators and other persons with the power to address the social injustices about which Gladden preached. Gladden preached 2 45-minute sermons each Sunday. In the morning, he preached on living the Christian life. In the evening, he preached on social problems. The evening sermon was printed in the Ohio State Journal the next day on page 1. During First Church unregistered trademark's 1902 Golden Jubilee celebration, Dr. Gladden said, regarding his preaching, you have not always agreed with me. You could not. But when my words, and sometimes my conduct were opposed to your thoughts and interests, you never tried to muzzle me. By the mid-1880s, Gladden drew audiences across the nation to hear him speak for bargaining rights for labor, a shorter work week, factory inspections, inheritance taxation, and regulation of natural monopolies. His goal was for a gradual evolution toward a cooperative social order. Theologically, Gladden is classified an evangelical liberal. As such, he was biblically grounded and centered, but always seeking to just Christianity to modern terms. He helped to promote his evangelical liberalism in books such as Burning Questions and Who Wrote the Bible. In Who Wrote the Bible, Gladden stated, it is idle to try to force the narrative of Genesis into an exact correspondence with geological science. In 1885, Gladden took part in forming the American Economic Association and served on its council. The stated purpose of the association was to support independent economic inquiry and to disseminate economic knowledge. In 1886, he traveled to Cleveland during a streetcar strike and spoke at a public meeting on Is It Peace or War, supporting the rights of the workers to form a union to protect their interests. He also advocated public ownership of streetcars and public utilities. The more Gladden addressed social issues, the more his church grew, from 500 in 1883 to 1,200 in 1914. When members disagreed with Gladden, rather than trying to bring them to agree with him, he sought to find common ground on which they could stand together. In 1893, former U.S. President Rutherford B. Hayes presented Gladden for the position of president of Ohio State University, but the board rejected him as to pro-Catholic because of his opposition to the anti-Catholic American Protective Association. However, the University of Notre Dame awarded Gladden an honorary doctorate for his stance. Gladden made several lecture tours to Great Britain. During the one in 1898, he defended the United States for entering the Spanish-American War as humane. Gladden exerted an international influence as the for their of the social gospel movement. His concern about social issues was grounded on his liberal theology that viewed the church unregistered trademark's mission as applying Christian values to secular institutions. Gladden served a term on the Columbus City Council between 1900 and 1902 and became an advocate of municipal ownership of public works. He also led a movement to change the dates of elections in Ohio from October to November. Gladden was one of his national Euro unregistered trademark SA Euro OE most progressively adursa Euro in efforts to resolve what he called a Euro OE the Negro problem, a Euro both economically and politically. He was vice president of the American Missionary Association between 1894 and 1901 and served as the president of the organization between 1901 and 1904. In this capacity, he traveled to Atlanta, Georgia to visit Atlanta University and meet W.E.B. Du Bois. He was shocked at the condition of Southern blacks and started speaking out against racism. Gladden Euro unregistered trademark S famous 1903 sermon a Euro OE murder as an epidemic a Euro condemned lynching. He resigned as president of the American Missionary Association to take up a position as the moderator of the National Council of the Congregational Churches of the United States in 1904. In 1905, he made national news by denouncing a $100,000 gift to the Congregationalists from John D. Rockefeller as tainted. In 1914, Gladden retired and became a Euro OE Minister Emeritus a Euro of the First Congregational Church. He remained active in other ways until he died of a stroke on July 2, 1918. The New York Times carried the news that a Euro OE Gladden, nationally known Congregational minister Euro had died. Dr. Gladden was predeceased by Jenny, his wife of 49 years, who died May 8, 1909. The last 4 years of her life she suffered arteriosclerosis that brought her to a state of bedridden dementia. Never in the limelight, Jenny was a Euro OE quietly supportive of her husband a Euro unregistered trademark S very public career a Euro the Gladdens had 2 daughters and 2 sons. Alcohol and personal problems beset the sons and they both died young. The difficulties with the Gladdens a Euro unregistered trademark sons occurred within a larger similar context. Post-Civil War America was marked by a Euro OE inward trouble and middle-class family life a Euro youth felt a Euro OE great uncertainty a Euro about their identity and their life via Euro unregistered trademark S work. This made it difficult for them to a Euro OE settle on careers a Euro large numbers suffered a Euro OE nervous collapses a Euro historians assessing Gladden a Euro unregistered trademark S career emphasized the importance of his role in the social gospel movement. Gladden became the social gospel a Euro unregistered trademark SA Euro OE most revered and respected spokesman a Euro Gladden not only promoted a Euro OE social gospel of practical action a Euro by his writing and speaking, he engaged in practical action by working for solutions. Gladden supported workers a Euro unregistered trademark right to unionize and he opposed racial segregation. These assessments by historians correlate with the goal Gladden held up for his ministry. In his 1909 autobiography Recollections, Gladden wrote that, as a minister, he wanted to practice a religion that laid hold upon life, and proposed first and foremost, to realize the kingdom of God in this world. Honors: Gladden never earned a theological degree, but he received 35 honorary doctorates a Euro Gladden is honored together with Walter Rauschenbusch and Jacob Riis with a feast day in the liturgical calendar of the Episcopal Church on July 2. Bibliography: Washington Gladden wrote hundreds of poems, hymns, articles, editorials, and books. Gladden a Euro unregistered trademark SMO Master, Let Me Walk With Thee has been published in 470 hymnals. His books follow: Plain Thoughts on the Art of Living 1868, 1, From the Hub to the Hudson 1869, 2, Being a Christian and How to Begin 1876, 3, Working People and Their Employers 1876, 4, The Christian Way, Whither It Leads and How to Go Ontario, 1877, 5, The Lord a Euro unregistered trademark S Prayer, 7 Homilies 1880, 6, The Christian League of Connecticut, 1883, 7, Things New and Old, Discourses in Christian Truth and Life 1884, 8, The Young Men and the Churches. Why Some of Them Are Outside and Why They Should Come in 1885, 9, Applied Christianity, Moral Aspects of Social Questions 1887, 10, Parish Problems, Hints and Helps for the People of the Churches 1887, 11, Burning Questions of the Life That Now Is and of That Which Is to Come 1891, 12, Who Wrote the Bible? A Book for the People 1891, 13, The Cosmopolis City Club 1893, 14, Santa Claus on a Lark, and Other Christmas Stories 1894, 15, Tools and the Man, Property and Industry Under the Christian Law 1894, 16, The Church and the Kingdom 1894, 17, Ruling Ideas of the Present Age 1895, 18, 7 Puzzling Bible Books, a supplement to Who Wrote the Bible 1897, 19, The Relations of Art and Morality 1897, 20, Social Facts and Forces 1897, 21, Our Nation and Her Neighbors 1898, 22, The Christian Pastor and the Working Church 1898, 23, How Much is Left of the Old Doctrines 1899, 24, Who Wrote the Bible 1900, 25, Social Salvation 1902, 26, Christianity and Socialism 1905, 27, The Church and Modern Life 1908, 28, Recollections 1909, 29, The Labor Question 1911, 30, Present-Day Theology 1913, 31, Commencement Day, A Book for Graduates 1916, 32, The Forks of the Road 1917, 33, The Interpreter 1918, 34. References: Ruth C. N's Progressive Era's Health Reform Movement, A Historic Dictionary, Praeger, Connecticut, 2003, Encyclopaedia Britannica Volume 10, 1970 edition, University of Chicago, page 441. Further reading Boyer, Paul. An Ohio Leader of the Social Gospel Movement, Reassessing Washington. Gladden, Ohio History Volume 116 No. 1, 2009, pages 88 to 100 in Project Muse, Dawn, Jacob. Washington. Gladden, Prophet of the Social Gospel, The Standard Scholarly Biography, Handy, Robert T. The Social Gospel in America 1870-1920-1966, Hopkins, Charles H. The Rise of the Social Gospel in American Protestantism 1865-1915. Primary sources Washington. Gladden Recollections 1909, Washington. Gladden Tainted Money 1895 The Outlook Magazine November 30, 1895. Online references External links, works by Washington. Gladden at Project Gutenberg, works by or about Washington. Gladden at Internet Archive, The Cambridge History of English and American Literature in 18 volumes. Volume 17. Later National Literature, Part 2. Columbia University 2004 entry, Cyber Hymnal article for Washington. Gladden, Cornell University article on Washington. Gladden, Book Rags Biography, Commentary Magazine reference to John D. Rockefeller, / Ohio History Central article on Washington. Gladden.